responsibility.
Good evening. My name is Ralph Godby, retired Detroit Police Chief, retired Detroit Public Schools Community District Police Chief. Currently, I am the Chief of Staff and serve as an executive pastor at Triumph Church under the Reverend Solomon W. Kinlock Jr. And I'm just eagerly anticipating a great conversation tonight because Black men and women have contributed so much to law enforcement. And we're very fortunate in this area, but there's a broader conversation that needs to be had because the Metro Detroit area is the anomaly. We're not the usual. So the world would do good to come see what we do with our communities here.
So my name is Dan Ringo. I'm kind of like Deputy Felton. I was thinking about the relevance of why I'm being here tonight, and I've kind of lived like a Forrest Gump style, like where I've done a lot of different things. I've served in the United States Air Force. I hold 3 degrees, 2 of which from Wayne State. One is a Juris Doctor degree. I've clerked for the state level federal judges. I've led a statewide labor union, the International Union of Operating Engineers Stationary Division. I own businesses. I currently am the Senior Vice President of Operations for Walker Miller Energy Services, which is a Black-owned, female-led energy service implementer that's operating in 5 states with 6 different utilities. And so as we get into this conversation, I'm pretty sure there'll be many things I'll be able to pull from in my experiences in different areas. I was appointed by Mayor Bing to serve on the advisory task force in 2014. The $500 million bond oversight of Detroit Public Schools by Robert Bob. I served on the Detroit Regional Chamber Metropolitan Affairs Coalition White Paper Board, telling the story for Michigan's workforce. So a lot of different things that you wouldn't put together, but hopefully I can contribute to this illustrious panel this evening. All right.
As you can see, we have a fire panel tonight. My name is Hodge Fleming. I'm the founder of Rebrand Cities. So we work with cities all across the United States and even in 3 different countries, helping small businesses through like digital transformation. So I'll be moderating like tonight's panel, and so I'm gonna jump right into it. So we're gonna start off with Chief Barrett, right? Lots of times in our community, there is this, this push and pull in terms of trust, right? And so what are some of the things that we can do as young Black men when we're in an environment and maybe there's certain protocol that we might not understand? Is there any advice that you have or anything that we can do so we can de-escalate things? Because lots of times I hear officers say they felt threatened, right? And so so what can we do to not put that officer or officers in those kind of situations?
Yeah, I'm gonna start off is that I understand why the community has those concerns, those trust concerns. We've seen things play out across the country that we know are unacceptable. We know that there was targeted behavior at individuals because of color. We talk about a candid conversation what happened to George Floyd. That was an incident where you had a police officer who went unmanaged, unsupervised for so long that eventually led to a murder. And so we talk about how we need to engage each other. I actually prepared, and I hand these out to any residents. I want all of you to take one of these when you leave. It kind of answers the question that you posed for me. The first side is what to expect from a Southfield police officer or any police officer doing a traffic stop. And then the other side of the card is what are your responsibilities as relates to how you engage with police officers. So very briefly, because again, I'm going to give you all the copy of this. And I'll start with what you should expect from a police officer. And so you have the right to know why you were stopped by that officer. Now let's talk about it. You see it play out many times. I call it an ego confrontation, where the officer will come right in. What is your ID, your registration, insurance? The citizen will say, well, can you tell me why you pulled me over? And then you got this debate that goes on, and it ultimately ends up in an arrest or some type of use of force. And so I knew coming into the door in Southfield, it changed the policy where it's mandated that when you stop the vehicle, before you ask for the registration insurance, You tell that motorist why you're stopping that vehicle. And then right away the conversation begins, and we can start having a meaningful dialogue. The other thing that's on this card I want to share with you is that you have the right, if you feel like your rights are being violated, to request a supervisor to respond to that scene. Most police departments, including Southfield, we have body cameras, we also have dash cameras. And so that interaction with you and that police officer is recorded. And you can get that supervisor to intervene if you have issues. The idea to argue and fight, certainly refrain from those types of behaviors, but again, request that supervisor. So again, I can go on a little bit more, I'm gonna take all the time, but I do have this card I want everyone to take. And so you have the rights and responsibilities that we expect you as a motorist to deal with the officer, and then what your rights and responsibilities as a driver.
Okay. Wow, I think that's pretty powerful because I know like anytime I've been stopped, I remember getting stopped. I had just graduated from college. I had a car that cost $150. And so it got me from point A to point B, and I remember getting stopped in Roseville or at East Point, and I asked the police officer, why did I get stopped? He said, you're driving too slow. And next thing I know, I find myself outside the vehicle, then I'm in the back seat of the vehicle, and I didn't do anything wrong. And I didn't really, and it was really tough for me like to be able to process that. And so I think this is really, the powerful information because again, I think in many cases, we end up nervous because we're trying to figure out how to respond. So.
And if you find yourself in that situation, you can also file a complaint with the agency. And it's the agency's responsibility to give you a follow-up on what happened in the investigation. So beat the drum on it. Don't just accept not hearing from the agency. Get a meeting with the chief, get a meeting with the lieutenants, and ask what happened to your investigation so you can know what the findings were.
Gotcha. Part of our conversation is that we want to talk about our encounters like with the police, but we also want to have conversations around how we operate as black men. So I'm gonna go down to Dan all the way up at the end. So I know that you have been in business and you've operated in quite a few like different, I guess like situations. And so you're well educated and you have a solid background. Have you ever been put in a confrontational situation where you felt like they minimized who you were and then you had to figure out how to respond?
Every day. That's an everyday occurrence. And one thing that I've learned to do is to not take it personally, because it's not a reflection on who I am and what I'm going to do or what I've done in my past. They simply don't know me. They may not want to know me, but it's not going to cause me to react based upon what I'm receiving from them and their attempt to minimize me. They're operating from, it's like a computer. They're operating based upon their software and how they look at life. And I don't have to respond to that. I'm going to execute whatever it is I set out to do in the way in which I know to do it the best way I can do that, and then stand on that. And but again, I'm minimized every chance because again, just the stereotypes and whether it's warranted, whether we play into it, whether it's unsolicited, it's what you have to deal with. But again, my brand I take personally. And one of the core values for the company I work with is value reputations. And so we value the reputation of the company, but also ourselves. And being able to represent who we are and what we do. So I just had this conversation with someone about boldly going and being brave enough to stand in who you are and standing on that.
Also, I think that's even a larger conversation because even outside of our interaction, even with the police, I find the same situation just with everyday people, right? In terms of like people wanting to minimize you and really trying to figure out how you operate like in that space, right?
And I'll say, but again, as we talk about police interactions, I'll be remiss. I've been in some situations where it could have went left, and officers have given me the benefit of the doubt when maybe they shouldn't have.
Okay.
So I think oftentimes when we have these conversations, we have to, kind of balance it out a little bit. So I'll say that because I can tell you about a couple situations I've had where I knew that this was not going to go stereotypically like it probably should, and I received the benefit of the doubt, and it left me with a very favorable impression of those that are meant to protect and serve.
Okay, that's good, that's good. So Chief, Godspeed, I have a question for you. So like, so the media has a certain perception, right? And so sometimes perception becomes, I guess, reality. And so when you have been in these situations, how have you seen that play out in terms of officers or even the general public, how they feel about African-American men? Because a lot of us have inherent bias. So, so I'm just kind of curious.
Well, I think, first of all, black police officers have a different burden. There's a concept called double marginality, where if you're a black officer to your community, sometimes you're viewed as a traitor. To law enforcement in general, which the majority is white across the country, you're an outsider. So you have two different worlds that you're trying to navigate between. So that responsibility becomes also from the standpoint of you have to police in a way that does not cause you to assimilate to the practices that are hurtful to black and brown people. You have to be acutely aware, and I told people when I was chief of police, I'm a black man that happened to be a cop, not a cop that happened to be a black man. Because I had to be acutely aware of the history of policing in the United States. The foundation of policing was slave patrols. And if you understand that that's the foundation of, if we're honest, the methodology really hasn't changed, but it has become more refined. Because the intent of the slave patrols was to control black and brown behavior through fear, violence, and intimidation. If you don't have a Chief Barron, if you don't have a Sheriff Washington, if you don't have a Chief White, if you don't have these progressive, culturally diverse chiefs that understand that, you have a culture that does not recognize the humanity of black and brown people. And even when we do all the things that Chief has suggested, Philando Castile, he had a legal weapon, CPL, and he was killed surreptitiously because ostensibly he was black. So we have to continue to have these conversations, and we can't rest on our laurels in a place like metropolitan Detroit because we're blessed. But these young people, when they go off to college, to Baylor, they go off to University of South Carolina, and they have to navigate even in suburbs of around Detroit. We really have to help educate not only these young people how to respond to police, but also have them understand the reality of how they're viewed by the police in general. And that is not a slap on the profession, because I'm very proud of my 27, 28 years of service. But it's a reality that these young people have to deal with it. We cannot give them a Pollyannish view to think that this is a different society. As a matter of fact, it's become even more polarized with some of the political rhetoric from the ultra-conservative right, and its view towards African Americans and surrounding black people. So we have a responsibility that is a very heavy burden when we wear badges as black and brown people.
Honestly, you said a lot of powerful stuff, right? Because lots of times we don't put ourselves in your shoes and to think about all the things that you have to be able to navigate in a split second and be able to make the right decision when we've already kind of even typecasted you, even though you're trying to do the right thing for our community.
And if I can answer this very quickly, and it goes on to human behavior as well. Because there are ostensibly 3 stress responses: fight, flee, and freeze. If you're a black person, fight and flee don't work very well with the police. These are physiological responses. So, the majority population who does not fear when they see red blue lights in their rearview mirror, we have a different reaction. Because I literally can die on a police stop just because of who I am. Now, the police officer has the same 3 responses: fight, flee, or freeze. But very well-trained police officers, we kind of train out of the flee and freeze. And our tool is fight. So until we look at it from a more nuanced standpoint and look at the physiological response to interaction, we're never going to get to the root cause of why these explosive situations happen. So to that point, we really, and people hate to hear me say this as a former cop, but we have to limit the amount of contact that police are supposed to have with black and brown people. Because the disproportionate level of contact is just math. If you stop black people more, and you already have a predisposition as to who you think they are, then the likelihood of an explosive situation under flight, freeze, or flee, it goes up exponentially. So the only equation that you can change to make it go down is start to look at the pretextual stops and why cops are allowed to do certain things in certain communities that they don't do in others. For instance, a air freshener that is hanging from your rearview mirror, if you go by the state code, that's illegal. It's obstructive view. But I guarantee you, if a person in Grosse Pointe or Farmington Hills with a very affluent look and a nice car had that, police wouldn't stop and think about it twice. But as a pretext on Mack and Beaver, Linwood and Philadelphia, that same code is utilized as a pretext to stop that person. So again, if you're not enforcing laws equally and fairly, and there's a predisposition to look down on others, that's why we continue to get the results we get. And we can't just have this conversation that every time there's a shooting, oh, he's a racist cop. It's much deeper than that. It's a culture that we really have to tackle and really have to deal with before we can start to make some substantive differences.
I got a question. How many people had those little trees hanging from their like the window in the car? I remember growing. That took me back like to my childhood. You know what I'm saying? So, but you know, the deputy. No.
Yeah. I was just saying to his point. I think that's why it's important. I'm not here campaigning, but voting, ladies and gentlemen, is a significant part of all this. And the reason why I'm saying voting is important because we all know that all politics is local. You have people that are representing you, that are going to the state, that are passing legislation and policies that allows a hanging tree to be a violation. There's a book about this thick, chiefs, if I'm right or wrong, just on traffic violations. When I go, I talk to young people, they get their driver's license, and they get out the car and say, why you pull me over for nothing? No, I didn't pull you over for nothing. First of all, you was driving too far to the left in the lane. You're like, what? I didn't know. It's in the book. And my point is, there was somebody who developed this law where we have pretextual stops now that we said, you know what, I'm not voting today. I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. So at the substratum or the foundation of all of this, if we want people to put laws in place that are not gonna offend or hurt us or offend us, we gotta vote. I had a young man tell me today, I was at Henry Ford High School in Detroit, he told me they voted was important. I said, so what you doing when you get out here? I'm going to college. I said, you got low end $75K to pay for school? He said, no. I said, so you probably gonna have to do what? Get loans. I said, okay, so you know that the president right now is getting rid of some of those people's loans. I said, so you know why you need to vote? Yeah. You know why you need to pay attention? And so again, we gotta look at the totality of circumstances when we talk about how the police interact with people, or how any other social ills that we have in our community are. We gotta use what we got to get what we want. The pen is mightier than the sword. A lot of times black folks were reactive to issues, we wanna march, we wanna fight, we wanna protest, we wanna do all that. How come we can't be proactive? How come we can't speak to our young people and tell them they can be more and not just tell them, but show them how to do it? And so again, in order for us to be effective and to find resolute and to have that to be sustaining, we gotta be willing to put in the work and do some of those things. So I think it's a vast and a wide net in terms of finding resolutions, but I think if we're strategic about the approach, we can get the results that we want. Thank you.
Okay. Also, I had a question for you. So like lots of times, you know, us as black men, we can actually get stopped, right? And there are a lot of young men out there who have aspirations of going to college and doing certain things. What I would love to know is, what is the impact once you start getting marks on your record?
And it's horrible, and that's a great question. And let me say this: my role right now with the sheriff's office is I'm in recruiting and community relations. And so, and that's why I'm actually going to recruit at 8th, 9th, and 10th grade, because we got a lot of people, young people who are finding themselves having negative interactions with the law, and it prevents them from actually getting jobs in law enforcement. And so I had a gentleman today call me and said, well, that was in HIDA. I got it expunged. I said, that doesn't work now. So what's happening is people are getting bad information about what decisions to make as it relates to their life when they commit a crime. I had a nephew, I'm getting there, I'm gonna give you 1 second to answer the question. He got caught with like less than an ounce of marijuana. Okay, DPD pulled him over, got caught with less than an ounce of marijuana. They asked him for his license, registration, proof of insurance. He didn't have it. He had a gun in the truck or whatever, right? It was loaded. He forgot the gun was there. It was legal, but he doesn't have a CPL. Okay, so they took him to Wayne County, and the Wayne County prosecutor's office, whoever the attorney, wanted him to plead and for it to go into HIDA. He wants to be a police officer. I said, absolutely not. What they can do is they can give you a misdemeanor, rather than that, they can drop the other charge. He didn't have anybody advocating for, he had me advocating for him, but if I would just let it go, this 26-year-old prosecuting attorney was gonna put this on my nephew. And I told her, I said, you can't do that. She said, well, this is the best thing for him. I said, let me talk to your supervisor. And so again, we gotta press the envelope, but if don't nobody know that, they're gonna say, take the plea, or take this, or take a plea deal. You got HIDA, then 5-6 years later, you graduate with your criminal degree, your justice, get your Juris Doctorate, all that, ready to be an attorney, but they said, you can't do that. And so we don't get the information out there and properly prepare these young people for these negative impacts. And then they'll run your credit, not run your credit, well, you do run credit when they're checking for law enforcement too. But when you go into college, if you got all this negative stuff or this negative impacts from the law, so, and then this last point, once I get to that stage and I figure that, you know what, the police done messed me up, I ain't gonna really get a good job anyway, I might as well just stay out here in the street and use my thuggism. Because I'm a survivor, I'm gonna get mine, you know what I mean? You're not giving them a choice. So again, vote.
That's right.
Is that lots of times we don't know what's on our record until it's too late. So I mean, because I have some friends who are trying to get into a certain high school. This one district was putting marks on their record about bad behavior, and it stopped them from getting into this other school. And I'm bringing this point up because we have to start checking not only our credit, stuff that's happening with the law, and figure out, if there are ways to be able to keep this stuff clean before it puts us into a very tough situation.
Last point. We was in high school, me and you.
Yeah.
I came out in '89.
Okay. Me too.
All right, so we came out in '89.
Yeah.
And some of y'all know we fought, we scrapped, boom, 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 boom. They take us to the office, Dr. Scott. They'll say, you know what, you're suspended for 3 days. Now they call the police in. Assault. You know what I'm saying? So again, that happened because somebody voted for that. It made it a policy or a law for that to happen. That's all I'm saying. Things have changed. Can't do it like we used to do.
Yeah, and Brother Fleming, if I could just jump in that point, because when I was chief at Detroit Public Schools Community District, we put a heavy premium on the fact that we were successful when we did not make arrests. So our arrests went down over 80% over my 2 years as chief here. Also, instead of kicking kids out of school for suspension, we had in-school suspension. Because all the cops up here know that when you take a kid out of a supervised environment, kicking them out of school, then you have teen pregnancy, you have break-ins, you have car theft, because these young kids have no structured environment. So we really have to reorient how we look at how we educate our kids. It is very important to keep police out of schools for what we have is childhood behavior. We would, get into a fight, go to the office, that was it. But you call the police in and now you're criminalizing childhood behavior. You're putting marks on kids that don't deserve that. And then later in life when they're trying to do something, those are the very marks they use to keep them achieving. So we have to be very activists as parents relative to the structure of what happens when my kid gets in trouble. How is it handled? Because a lot of schools you call good schools, well, they only want to hold on to the pristine kids. But the schools that are really effective are the ones that understand that everybody comes with issues, even your quote unquote good kids. And how do you mentor that kid? How do you help that kid mature? How do you help him grow? How do you address the deficits that they have? Some could be psychological. You know, if they were abused or not. We saw kids that were coming from homes that didn't have washers and dryers. So they stopped coming to school, not because they weren't smart, but because they didn't want to get teased, because they had an odor, because they didn't have a place to take a bath. So teachers started to put the money together, get washers and dryers at the school to help the kid have. So we have to really be much more innovative, but we got to get involved. And then if we get involved at the right time, you never have to see us as cops. That's the goal. Not how well we police, but make sure that you never have to see us in the first place. That's what we should be aiming.
Yes.
Great. I think together with your question was about African Americans being targeted and also the importance of voting and then leadership. I always say the police chief sets the tone for an organization. Say it again, the police chief sets the tone for an organization. So let's talk about a case story out of Missouri, Ferguson, Missouri. I'm sure you all remember Ferguson, Missouri riots. The Department of Justice went in and did an investigation as what caused all this distrust between the community and the police. They were able to pull emails, they were able to talk to citizens, and what they found was the police chief and the head of the courts were in cahoots. What they would do was instruct the officers to go out and generate revenue off of tickets and arrests. And guess what neighborhoods they were instructed to go into for the assumption of that's where the high crime is. And so you saw a disproportionate amount of traffic stops, tickets, excessive ticket writing. One person may get 8 to 12 tickets on one traffic stop. You saw a disproportionate amount of arrests where non-African Americans would get dismissed or let go. We would get locked up or ticketed. And then the courts would help out because it's poor neighborhoods. And so you don't pay your fine. So now they have excessive court fines and late penalties. So we're always in a system of being arrested because we have warrants for unpaid tickets and whatnot. So that's why it's important for you to know who your police chief is, hold the police chief accountable for what's happening in the organization, and also voting so you get the right legislation in to make these changes.
Yeah, it's powerful, you know what I'm saying? So again, we have to understand our rights, we have to understand all the opportunities that are, I guess, like available to us. I grew up and I didn't have a father growing up. I didn't meet my father until I was 20. I grew up, like we all have different situations. So Sean, I know you do a lot of mentoring, and I know there's a lot of things that you do, I guess, in terms of being able to give back to the community. Why is that so important, and why is that needed?
I'm gonna answer that, but I wanna piggyback on this is good. This is a good conversation, and I'm learning something up here. So thank you all for your insight and your professionalism, right? And so I wrote down 4 things as these gentlemen were talking, and so I tend to come from a standpoint of being solution driven, and so this is the standpoint where I think that us as like the audience members, like as community people, where we can start to impact, right? So what I wrote down was 4 points, all right? One is systemic, and so we know that we tend to look at, I don't know about you, but when I'm out on the street and a police car pulls up, the thing that hits my gut is, all right, I'm in trouble and I am opposite or against the police officer, right? So I know that in this country, there is systemic racism, right? It's been there 400 plus years, 500 years, including Jim Crow. It is in the system. And so I'm going to echo what these gentlemen have said when they said vote, but I'm gonna say it a different way. In order to be able to change the system, we have to be in charge of the system. We have to be in positions of power, in positions of authority, in order to be able to change our destiny. Does that make sense? Yeah. Right? And so they said vote. I'm even going to go as far as to say and challenge people that feel angry, right, and know that we are in a system that is systemically racist, right? Even if the people within the system that work it aren't, the system was built on racism. So in order to change that system, we got to be in charge of it, and then we have to be there for some time to move the ship and start to rewrite the books. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Money rock that. The other thing that I wrote down, this is good stuff. Thank you, gentlemen. When we talk about like the officers and the feelings that we have and the anger that we have, is my mic on?
No.
They all out. Was I too loud? They all out. They all out. Okay. Do I need to wait till we cut it back on, or can I go ahead and talk?
We kind of live stream.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, rock that. And so when we talk about the relationship, I think that there are ways that we can start to innovate the relationship between the citizen and law enforcement. And so if we did things, thank you, rock that.
Right.
If we did things like innovate how we engage each other, these types of events that we have where you get to understand the personality of your police chiefs and law enforcement and know who they are as people, when they pull us over, we can probably start to look at them as people who are actually on our side as opposed to people who are against us. Does that make sense? That also takes time. That takes relationship building. That takes conversations that need to happen at a high level within, whether that's local government, state government, city government, national government. We need to start to have those conversations. Some of those conversations can be initiated by everyday citizens. Rock that? I can get an amen. It's all good. It's all right.
Amen. You got a fist over here.
I'm also going to say this because I think that we have to get more than just angry. We get angry. You know what we're good at? We're good at getting mad. We are good at getting angry. But then what comes after that? And this goes back to the vote thing, right? Who stands in the spot? Who then stands in the spot and says, I'm not going to let this happen to the next generation of kids who comes along? Right? If we care about it that much, I'm going to say this to you all. If our children fail, because listen here, kids don't raise themselves, adults do. If they are impacted by anything, if they are exposed to anything, it is by our authority that happens, or lack thereof. So if our children fail, it is because we have failed them. And if we do not want them to go through the same things, or the same horrible things that have happened to us, then who stands in the gap? Who stands up and becomes the leader of the Who are the people who say, you know what? Failure is not an option. We got to do more than just get mad about it. You got to get fired up. You got to get inspired. Rock that.
I love it.
Am I going to? I got one more point.
Rock that. Even for offering right now.
No.
Right, even like he's in church.
I'm also going to say this, and this is my last point on this. Long-term strategy, right? We can't look for short-term wins, short-term fixes. If we need people in position, we need long-term strategy, which means that we have to be a community of people who communicate and who look out for each other. And it has to be long-term, which means that we have to see children not only come from kindergarten, but make sure that they are successful through adulthood, through college, because they are going to lead our tomorrow. And whether they are successful, whether they are good at what they do, depends on what we invest in them today. So that is long-term strategy, and we have to start thinking that way, and we have to stop thinking short-term.
All right, let's do my man a hand real quick. I want to say this, and then I'm going to open up the floor. I want to make sure we got everybody at least one question, and then we can kind of just kick it probably a little bit more. I found in life that luck and failure are two sides of the same coin. Sometimes we see people who are here and the coin just happened to fall the right way for them. There are other people where the coin fell a slightly different way and we have a totally different outcome. And lots of times we look at people differently because of where their station in life is, when they're really no different than me and you, right? And so sometimes we put people in a box because something happened to them. I can look at my own life, and even though I've always been a pretty good person, I can look at times where if the coin would have felt a little bit different, my whole life would be different, right? And I think we have to give ourselves a little bit of mercy. But I guess, the one thing that I want to talk to this group about is, what can we do in terms of being responsible? It can't always be everybody else. I have a daughter who's 13, and I think about what are the decisions that I have to make, because my ceiling should be her floor. And so I always think about, if she's a seed and she's looking at me, what kind of example am I setting so that I can be a better example, so she can say she had a blueprint. And I'll close with this, and then I want to jump into, what I'm saying, when you got a chance. I remember telling her that there are certain ways that I think that a young man should dress. And I remember having earrings, having earrings like in college. I'm not knocking anybody with an earring. So I told her, I said, hey, young men don't wear this and don't wear that. And then she looked at the cover of a magazine and said, okay, they said Rocky had on this and Pharrell had on that. I said, well, okay, so then I had to bring it local, and I had to say, this is what your father does, right? And so, again, what can we do as role models in terms of making sure that we are demonstrating the kind of example that we want our community to actually see? I just open it up and whoever wants to chime in.
Community and parenting is like two different things. What I mean by that is, one way the community can set a tone or whatever. When we talk about parenting, let me say this: I've been married 32 years. I got 3 kids: 36, 29, 27. I got a 13-year-old granddaughter, so I was cracking up when you said you had a 13-year-old daughter. But anyway, my point is, being a parent is probably one of the most important jobs in the world. Would you all agree?
It comes with no blueprint either.
Yeah, you still in my thunder. Hold on, man. You done messed up my whole man. So my whole point is this: you can go to school, get a job to be a doctor, an attorney, a lawyer, a builder, and all that stuff. You got to be certified in order to do all of these things. But one of the most important jobs in the world, which is parenting, anybody can do it. That's what I was going to say. But you beat me to the punch. I'm sorry. So again, everybody has a way of parenting, and don't be hard on yourself. And I'm just saying this from my position of always. I called my kids back to them, man, I'm sorry, because I'm thinking about things that I did as a parent. My oldest daughter got it the worst. You gonna sit down, you gonna do this math right now, you gonna whatever, crying and carrying on. By the time I got to my grandbaby, I'm like, why don't you just take a break and come back and we can do it again. And so what I'm saying is, everybody has a different way of parenting. And I'm gonna tell you this is the first time that we have, I wanna say, 6 generations, and everybody's doing things differently. If I work at a Ford Motor Company, there was a time when a man that's working, he would come to work, he have his newspaper underneath his arm, and he have a cup of coffee in his thermos, and he's reading the newspaper. Then you look down the line, about 20 minutes later, there's a guy coming in with his Starbucks, and he got his phone like this. They're doing the exact same thing, but they're doing it differently. And we look at them thinking that they're crazy, but they're doing things differently. So again, it's the paradigm with which you look at these things. And so you just got to consider that. And parents, don't be hard on yourself. Take your time. Ain't nobody teach you how to do it. Do what you got to do. And the Bible says, ye being unwise, comparing yourselves among yourselves. Don't compare yourself to nobody else. Do you. Do the best that you can. If you need some help, reach out to the community. That's what I do with my son. I don't call Dr. Scott. I don't call everybody. I'm not too proud to say I ain't got it all. So we can make sure that that seed is looking at the right thing.
Well, yes, if I can add to that, I think the most important thing, especially for young people, not only try and live a life of standing in front of it, but be honest about your mistakes. Yeah. Because when you pretend like that you're perfect and you've never done this and you don't understand that, when the reality is but by God's grace.
Yes, sir.
That we sit here in the first place. We made tons of mistakes. Yeah. But we have to teach them is the only L's we take are lessons, not losses. And when you do that, I think that's when you have credibility with young people. We lose credibility as parents and role models is when we look down on young people as if they're doing something we didn't do. You know, we talk about how horrible the music is now, how graphic it is. But if we honest,
Yes, sir.
the Isley brothers sang In Between the Sheets, that wasn't real. Come on, we just said it different.
That's right.
But the sentiment is the same, the mentality is the same. I've never been concerned about what my daughter hears, because I've always been there in her life to give her context to it. You can't hide kids from real life. And the more you try, the more you're going to disadvantage that young person. But they need to see the world for what it is, but then you give them the context. You give them your experience. You let them know how you learn from similar mistakes. Cheryl Brady said something to me when I had my biggest fall of my life. She said, my mistakes cost so much. Why should you have to pay the same price? So all I encourage young people to do is look at me, the things that you feel like you got right, follow that path. The things that I got wrong, let me talk to you, young man, young woman, let you know why you don't want to go in that direction. That's how we get credibility with our young people again.
Man, that's extremely powerful. Like, I know even when you start talking about the Me Too stuff, any of us who are like I'm 52 years old, and I've talked to other cats who were, you know what I'm saying, and we thought about college, and we just looked back and thought about what were some of the things that we said in college that it wasn't recorded because Facebook didn't exist, Snap, all that stuff didn't exist, and we're like, what if we said that same thing today? Where would we be at today? And so we really have to really be thoughtful in terms of what we do today. It might not age well, and so everything you're doing is being recorded. So you know, so Dan, I mean, I don't know if you want to jump in.
Yeah, I could talk a lot about that. I have 4 kids and 3 grandkids, and my oldest will be 32. My youngest is 23. She'll be 23. Yeah, when you get this many, you make some. I take the same approach, but a little different. Because of my experience in parenthood, when we say that it's something that can't be taught, that's true. But I was blessed with a great example. But then I had to learn that example that worked well for me would not necessarily translate to my kids because of it's a different era. My kids are not me. They have my makeup, but they're not me. And as much as I've tried to emulate my father, I'm not my father. And so when we look at how we raise children, you try to do the best you can. Hopefully your kids see that you're trying to do the best, but they have to meet you halfway. I'm not one of those dads that put it all on me. I am not, this is no Cosby example here. I'm telling you. Listen,
Don't use that name.
you have to, oh no, grandkids are totally different. They can have whatever, they can do whatever. But my children are grown. I've provided the example. I went back to school and finished my bachelor's and law degree as an adult. They saw the struggles. They went to law school classes with me. They went to my undergraduate classes with me. So they saw the importance that I placed for myself on education to progress my career and my family. If they choose to go a different path, it's because they chose to go a different path, and I'm not going to chase them to follow that different path. I've done the best I can do. I gave you an example. My life is an example of what I thought would be the best. And so I'm not going to fall out with you. I tell them all the time, hey, your decision is your decision, and please be careful taking advice from people who don't have to live with that decision. My life is an example, and hopefully they will follow that. So I think as parents, and I think it was said here today, we have to give ourselves some grace. Nobody wants better for you than your parents for the children in the audience. Your parents are a crystal ball. And I was 34 when my father passed away, and man, I wish, not only could he see me now, but it's so much I would love to learn from him as he progressed. And that's the thing I think for the next generation, is to learn that as much as I can teach you now, I'm still learning as well. And the tape is still recording. So hopefully you can stay with me so you can get all this game that I got to give you. As I turn 50, man, I can't wait to know what will I know at 60, because I'm gonna tell you this, I learned more about life for the young people in the audience, I learned more about life between 40 and 45 or 40 and 50 than I did between 18 and 40.
Yes, sir.
I got that much smarter in that much shorter period of time. So if you can understand that this life thing, it gets better, it progresses. The more you take from those who are trying to give you to build your lifestyle and the kingdom that you want for you and your family, the better. It's not about how fast you go, it's about minimizing the setbacks.
Yes, sir.
We talked about some of the people may get arrested or have some legal issues. I try to tell people, don't make these decisions that's going to change the trajectory of your life. I was able to go into the military at 20. I already had a son. And when I went in because I wasn't doing anything, and the recruiters thought I was running from the police. Because I was gone in 3 weeks. They couldn't believe I came in, took the ass bath, and they said, man, this guy's trying to get out of here. What's going on? So they had to stall me a bit to see if anything had hit. But I passed well, but I didn't have anything on my record. That allowed me to make a decision that changed the trajectory of my life in a minute because I had no encumbrances. I had nothing holding me back. And that's the thing I try to explain to people, especially my young folks, is that, man, do not make a permanent decision off temporary emotions. We all have done it.
I want to add on to that. I read an amazing book, and it's called The Psychology of Money, and it's by Morgan Housel. And one of the points that he brings out in there is that he starts talking about comparison. And lots of times we run a race against somebody else who's running with a different set of rules, right? And we try to compare our life to somebody else's life. Your life is not your parents' life. Your life is not somebody's life in Birmingham. It's not somebody's life anywhere else. We all have to run our own race. And it becomes very important. Just because somebody starts out faster, it doesn't mean that they're going to win. And at the end of the day, what does success look like? In society, we put so much emphasis on monetary, and we look on the gram, and we start comparing ourselves to athletes and people who have a lot of, the money they can just throw away, and we try to compare ourselves. What I want us to do is my goal is to compare myself to myself every day and try to get 1% better. And so to the panel, what can we do to make sure that we just look in the mirror and not get focused on what everybody else is doing?
Well, I'm gonna start off by talking about a little bit about the mistakes that I've made. And remember, these influences that these kids are dealing with today, we dealt with them as well. Yes. I remember the music that was going on that influenced me, the movies that influenced me. And so I found myself so intrigued with that lifestyle, watching that stuff. I started doing things I shouldn't be doing. I was very fortunate. I had two men in my life. I had a biological father and also my stepfather. And they did not give up on me. In fact, they was hard on me. And so when I say hard on me, when some of my peers were able to hang out late at night, I had to have my hand in the house. I couldn't come home smelling like alcohol or marijuana because I knew there would be a consequence at home. And so we got to make sure that we invest in our children, have rules for our children, because again, if we don't do that, those outside influences and that peer pressure is going to take over. And then we'll be left wondering, what could we have done differently? But by that time, it's too late. So this is one thing to think about, is being invested in their lives and having the courage to step in and make those changes and hold them accountable.
That's powerful. Anybody, you know what I'm saying, have any other stories? I mean, because I really like your personal story. Things that you had to overcome or things that you've seen that could help, I guess, somebody else.
I'll talk to that. I remember as a kid who came up in the hood, stayed on the north end, and we didn't see much of anything that was great. We just didn't. But I went out to my grandparents' house, so at the time, back at that time, Southfield was a suburb to be, and they lived in Southfield. And as a kid, it was amazing to drive down the street in Southfield, Michigan, and see the homes. And to be able to go to my grandparents' house, who had one of those middle-class homes, for me, was life-changing. One of the things that we like to do now, and me and fiance, she loves to look at houses, so we go to neighborhoods with houses that are way above our pay grade, and you drive them and you dream.
Not yet.
What?
Not yet.
Not yet what?
Because we said it's above your pay grade.
Well, yeah, no, not yet. Yeah, just not yet. But I would challenge folk to dream now, right? There's this word called inspired. You all heard me say it earlier. Inspired in the Hebrew, it means to breathe in. It means to breathe in. To something that's expired. When you go buy your bread and your eggs, you look for what? The expiration date, right? It means that it's taken its last breath. To be inspired means to breathe in. The connotation of that word has a divinical reference. It means to breathe in something that is higher than you are. It means to set your sights and your thoughts on something that is above where you currently exist, right? Hodge talked about everybody coming from where they come from and everybody being dealt their hand, right? But you can't use that as an excuse to not go forward, to not advance, to not grow, to not transcend, to not overcome. And so I would admonish all to go take a ride and go look at stuff that you've never seen before, to consider things you've never considered before. Go, if you can't buy it, go to the store and walk around it. Go try it on in the fitting room. There's a scripture that says to speak those things that are not as though they were, and they shall be it, that death and life is in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. And so when we talk about that, overcoming, and where we are, I'm going to challenge y'all to dream some and put some effort into your dream and going to look at what it looks like and start forming it out. Rock that?
Rock that. Rock that. That's cool. I want to shift a little bit.
What up,
yeah. So in terms of community engagement, we have people that don't look like us in our community, right? What are some of the things that we can do to try to build bridges so that there is an understanding on both sides? You know what I'm saying? Because I know there are people who want to do the right thing, but maybe they just don't know how to engage. So what are some things that we can do to kind of help bridge, I guess, some of those gaps?
I'll start with that. You have to get out of your comfort zone, and you have to talk to people, because when you talk to people and communicate, you find out you have much more in common than you ever may have thought. I want to say about 3 weeks ago, I have a friend. He's about 80 years old, Jewish gentleman. I'm 56. I'm black. I'm Christian. And you would think that we had nothing in common. I'm from the east side, born and raised. Still east side to my heart. Yet, when we talked, we had conversation, we had fellowship. We talked about the things that we had in common, our families, our kids. We all want the same thing. I want the best for my kids and grandkids. He wants the best for his kids and grandkids. He wants to be able to walk down the street and not be judged. I want to walk down the street and not be judged. When you don't communicate, you just stay in silos. You don't get outside those silos and meet other people, experience other things, learn other cultures. Then it's just easy to be a hashtag to somebody. But we have to really go deeper than that. And it comes with conversation. You got to talk to people. And it doesn't happen in a text. But we got to get back to breaking bread and sitting down and learning about each other's families and customs. And not being intimidated because you do something different. But learn how to appreciate it. Because every Christian ain't the same. You got apostolics, you got Church of God in Christ, you got Baptists, you got Free Will Baptists. Every Jewish person not the same. Every Muslim is not the same. There's Sunni and Shia Muslims. So if we're going to be divided, that's easy. The real work comes in just getting to know a person as an individual and not judging them based on what you perceive them to be, but get to know people for yourself.
I'm going to dive in with an example. When I was in Detroit, we did a program called Restorative Practices. And it was a very powerful moment in that group. So what happens in restorative practices is the police officer will come dressed in plain clothes. You invite members from the community, all different backgrounds. There came a time in that meeting where an older black female was telling her account of how she teach her children. And what she told her children was, when you meet with the police, have contact with police, don't look at them in the eye. Well, a young white police officer in the room asked her, why do you teach them that? Because from a law enforcement standpoint, we're looking at that as maybe being evasive, or you're trying to lie, or something to that effect. She says, well, I was born in the South. She says that we were taught that if you look at the police officers, at that time, she's talking about the police department was predominantly white, dealing with African American communities, that those officers looked at that as a threat on them. So that's why she was teaching her children to not give eye contact. And so it was a powerful moment right there of understanding two different backgrounds. Again, a 27-year-old newly white police officer, how he was taught, and then an older black female who has roots in the Deep South, and how her perspective of how she's going to keep her children safe. So to get to your question, having these conversations is how you continue the dialogue to start understanding each other's backgrounds. And again, that was a very powerful movement.
Yeah, because we're all socialized differently, right? You know, so I think all that is really, really powerful. One thing that I want to do is I want to open up the floor for some questions, because I want to be able to get questions from the audience, and I want y'all to be able to, so I don't know, we want to kind of just stand up, and we can kind of hit some questions, and I guess we'll start right here.
Oh.
You're right, yeah.
So my question was, retired Chief Gabi, you had brought up a point where you were talking about the fear responses, so the 3 fear responses. And you talked about black and brown people and their fear response when they're pulled over by the police, but you also talked about police having that same fear response.
Yes.
How do we as a community reduce that implicit fear response as soon as a police officer gets out of their car and approaches us in the car?
In creating forums and spaces like this to get face to face and talk to each other, I always tell people hate the cop that they don't know. And when you know a police officer, because I was the first police officer in my family. 14, my father got 14 brothers and sisters, my mother got 7 cousins. I'm the first cop. Everybody loved me in my family because they know me. So if you don't take the time, because everything in life is about relationship. So police departments that don't invest in relationship, and they try and get that capital with the community after a tragic incident, those are the ones that fall apart. You'll notice, I don't care, even go back to Rodney King, all the way until George Floyd. Not one time in the Metro Detroit area was there rioting, was there looting, was there anything that went on? Were people pissed? Absolutely. But the dynamic is different here because we know each other. We go to church together. You know, the worst thing that happened in Detroit was when they got rid of residency and the officers didn't have to live in the city anymore, because you have a much different appreciation for the community that you live in than the one you just occupy and police in, and then you go back someplace else. So those are some legislative things that we really need to work on, because police officers should have to live in the community and with the people that pay them. Because if you because when I came on the police department at 19, I lived on the east side. The same place I policed, I shopped with people at the market. I saw them at church. So there's a different level of respect, because these are people I know. I know your cousin. I know. If you don't have that relationship, it's destined to keep devolving into those explosive situations. I can't tell you the number of times I saw a young person I stopped on the street that I went to school with their uncle, I knew their cousin, or we grew up, and know the same families. So relationship is important. Again, chiefs like Chief Bear, sheriffs like Sheriff Washington, chiefs like Chief White. And Detroit has a history. I don't care what about any chief in Detroit, except for maybe 1 or 2. One I'm thinking of, but I'm gonna be nice. But community was the crux of what they did. You may disagree with their enforcement style, but every chief had to be community oriented in Detroit, or they would have got ran out of there because the community was that invested. So relationship is everything.
Gabi, and that is so powerful what you just said about relationships and being, like being in the community and being embedded there, it's almost like going to school. And I remember seeing my teacher at the grocery store. I thought they only operated at school. When I saw them in the community, I felt differently about them. That's a very powerful point.
And then just as kind of a follow-up to that, I would like to hear from some of the other members of the panel, but also some of the things that you brought up were still things that would come from the policing side of it. What are some of the things that we as a community of Black and brown people can do to reduce that fear response?
Hey, and the reason why I hear your question, but the thing about it is, well, first of all, I want these young people to comply with the police. Make the complaint later, live to talk about it. But I think the thing that hurts me is the fact that we have to adjust our behavior because police don't appreciate who we are as people. That's a philosophical piece that I just struggle with, because why should I have to act different when the police pull me over than a person that is not black? That hurts to know that there's still people in this country that have that mentality, that see me as a criminal the moment they pull me over. So short answer is, the car that Chief Barron has that is lined up what we need to do in those police encounters, but that's a survival tactic. We need to get back to a point where there's just a level of respect that I see you as a man. I don't see you as a black man. I see you as a human being. I see you as God's creation. And I treat you as such until you give me reason to do otherwise. That's the part we're missing in our policing and in our country, quite frankly. The reason why we can't get too comfortable is because you have a Chief Barron, you got a Chief White, you got a history of chiefs in this area. But there are 18,000 police departments in this country. And that means there's 18,000 different chiefs of police. And that means that there are 18,000 different ways of doing policing and treating black and brown people. So until we can unify around a code where we all police under the same standard, we just got a hell of a lot of work to do. So I understand your question as to what the community can do. But the community has done a lot. Policing has not done enough. Politics, we have not done enough to adjust to make sure that our people are safe. That falls on us.
Just two questions. So the first part of it, I think you touched on it. Usually chiefs around the nation and in the state usually have conventions. So we know what the chief is doing in Southfield, and that's powerful. How are we expanding that tent for those other chiefs? That's my first question. The second question is, maybe in this room, we're gonna have a police officer probably join you all in the future. But they also don't realize that there's other parts of policing, such as cyber crimes are going up. They may be great at computers and they don't realize they have that interaction to kind of transcend that into the police realm. Can you explain or talk about other options that these kids could have as they move forward?
Can I take the second question first? Can I take the second question? I'm not a chief, so I'm not going to answer the chief question. But I am a recruiter, so let me go ahead and put this out there. So you're absolutely right. You know, and with that being said, the Wayne County Sheriff's Office is hiring right now. We had a big time shortage, and everybody, they own 56 hours overtime right now. They have to work 56 hours a week. And they're starting off 18 years old, ladies and gentlemen, no experience needed. All you need is a valid driver's license, you need to pass a drug test, a physical, high school diploma, GED, and you start off making $48,654 a year. And you start making that the day you start training, 7-week training. That's the base salary. Okay, they go up to $55,000 after 3 years, and they max out at $85,000 a year after 6. So at 24 years old, you can be making $85,000 a year with a career. Okay, and the last thing I'm gonna say about it is, I know a few people. I know one guy specifically, personally, he made $190,000 last year working for Wayne County Sheriff's Office. I'll be in the back and ask some questions about that, so you can go there and ask a chief question.
Let me dive into the question about what we're doing nationally to send this message. So there's an organization, you may have heard about, the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, NOBLE. NOBLE's doing tremendous work. Right now, NOBLE's being led by former Atlanta Police Chief Rodney, what's Rodney's last name? Rodney, and then and then second, and I'm talking about national number. Second is who's right here, Renee Hall, former DPD deputy chief, former chief of police in Dallas, and now she's the number 2 on the national number scale. And I'm telling you, Renee's dynamic. And so there's national conventions where law enforcement executives will come from all different communities. They put on great presentations, we share information, talk about technology, talk about these very same issues that we're talking here, but it's coming from a law enforcement, black law enforcement perspective. We talk about diversity, ensure that what are we doing to recruit more women into this profession? You know, so these conversations are being had, and again, Noble's leading that charge. They're doing great work. Chief got more expand on that?
And then also, I think something else we need to consider is, and I think chiefs are doing this more deliberately now, with more intentionality, is how we recruit and what we sell policing to be. Because when I ran recruiting in Detroit Police under the late Chief Benny Napoleon. I was in charge of police recruiting, and everything was SWAT team and kicking down doors and car chases and, come join the police department, get all this excitement. The reality is, and chiefs will tell you, policing is about 85% community relations. It's a very small percentage of time that you really have to go to in a strong enforcement mode, and an even smaller percentage of time that you have to really use force. With that being said, then you have to change your bait. Because if you use violence as your bait, then you're going to get violent people in your police department. If you sell it as that. So we really have to be deliberate and intentional in what we promote policing to be. And you'll see more departments talking about the community-oriented aspect of policing, because we're social workers. At 19 years old, it was daunting, but I remember getting called to a domestic violence run. And this couple had been married probably 40 or 50 years, longer than I've been alive on the planet. And I'm a 19-year-old trying to come in to help mitigate a domestic violence situation when I have no idea about marriage at 19. So who we recruit, how we train them, raising the standards, understanding that policing is more about community relations than it is about car chases. I mean, in 25 years, thank God, I've never had to discharge my weapon at nobody, except at the gun range. That is the normal, to be totally honest. Most police people believe that it's like Hollywood, like you're doing car chases 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That is not true. We do more, negotiating and coddling and making people feel good and telling people to get along. Let people go. I mean, seriously. I mean, using discretion in how we treat people. So who you recruit is very important. And then the tone, as Chief Barron said, as to what you set as your organization, that culture, that chief makes all the difference in the world.
Great answer, great answer. Do we have any young ladies who have any questions in the audience? Right here. Right. Okay.
I just like to just say I'm so proud of these men that are sitting here and have taken out their time to come and to share with the group on this evening. I just want to say I was raised by a two-parent home. My mom and my dad, they were my heroes. The Word of God says that know ye not that you have 10,000 instructors in Christ, but not many fathers. Someone had asked the question, how do we get involved? Well, one of the things that we have to understand that fatherlessness is one of the most destructive forces in our culture today. The men have to step up. We know that the women are there, but the men have to step up. The fathers have to be there. Fathers is progenitor. Pro means to live. Genitor means it's the generator of a generation. It's the start. No father, no families. No father, no community. No father, no city. No father, no nation. And so there's a breakdown there. And so I had a number of fathers in my life. And they imparted in my life, just like these men right here are doing right now. They are imparting in the young people's lives, the next generation, and that's what I'm doing right now as a pastor in the city of Lathrop, as a pastor, as a surrogate father. We are imparting in this next generation, And so that's what we have to do. We all have to play our part. We have to step up. We have to vote. We have to be there for our young people. And presence is everything. Let me tell you that. A lot of times we have a tendency, we want to buy our children. But, you know, taking up some time with them, taking them out and just sitting down and, you know, having a cup of coffee with our young people and speaking a word that will stoke a listener's life. That's the key thing that we have to do. We have to be there. Our presence have to be there.
So we have a young lady, but also if we have any young people too, any young men, we want to hear from you guys as well too. Really young lady in the front audience, right here. If we get the microphone here, that'd be amazing. Right here in the front. Oh, okay. All good. All good. I don't know if we're gonna line them up or whatever. I'm gonna let y'all do what y'all do. She's like, you like, listen. I got you.
Good evening, folks. Good evening, folks. My name is Frank Watts. I've been blessed with a 55-year marriage. I have 4 sons, and I have 7 grands, and I've got 4 great-grands. But I've got a thing that bothers me and have been bothering me for a lot of years. I'm going to address this to law enforcement. I have a son who is 39 years old, and he's autistic, okay? And he functions on the level of a 5-year-old. He's 6 feet tall and weighs about 250. And the thing that bothers me that I'm dealing with is every day we ride, and I'm afraid of what may happen if I'm pulled over by the police. Now, he's not gonna put his hands behind his back. He's not gonna put them up. But I've trained him to put his hands on the headrest. Now, I don't get stopped. I haven't been stopped in years. Talking about just walk. But it may happen, and I need some advice, and you guys can get it to me. What can I do? What things can I do to have him ready to be in a better position if pulled over? Should I roll my windows down immediately? I've got a thing where I've got what I would say, okay? And it's just valid. He's autistic, he's a kid, you know, he's crazy, crying, whatever. But I need some info on that. And I know that, probably there are folks in here who are in the same position. That's it. I would like to get some info on that.
That's a very, very, very good question. I'm gonna let them get the technical stuff, but I'm a part of the crisis intervention team. And we got a brother here that actually helps train individuals. Set up Dr. Scott from the Rex so everybody can see you. He trains individuals on how to engage. Not only those, but even we find people that are in crisis. So as law enforcement is trying to catch up with some innovative ways of engaging the community, as Chief Godby talked about, this is one of the things that we're doing is they have specific trained officers who go out to deal with these type of situations. And if they can't handle it, they call on support. Like Dr. Scott, they have veterans or things like that who might be going through. Now, the reason I jumped on this is because I was just in a situation where I was at a school, and a young man was coming down the hall, kind of jumping, and he was a big fella. He was looking, as a police officer, or in that mind, you just thinking like, what's up with my man? That's the first thing I'm thinking. I'm just gonna be transparent. I know that everybody else might say, oh, he might be autistic. That wasn't what I was thinking. I was thinking that, I'm about to get him together in a nice way. But once he got closer to me, I understood what I was dealing with. And so I'm super sensitive to your concern. And I don't know if there's a formal way of doing that, but I believe in your local municipality, wherever you live, I would let the police know first. That's what I would do. I would let them know that I have an autistic son, and this is what, now I give him a picture, I take my son up there and introduce him to him. That's what I would do. Take my son up there and introduce him to him.
About 5 years ago, I called the second precinct. I asked them, I just want people to see police officers.
Yes, sir.
In uniform.
Yes, sir.
They sent 3. The chaplain and 2 from the gang squad in an unmarked car. Didn't help me at all.
Yes, sir.
Is there anything that I can do, or any way that I can have?
So I was just saying, in your local, you live in the city?
Yes, I live in Detroit.
Okay, so I would try to go and get that taken care of, and I'll talk to you afterward, and I'll try to help you facilitate that. But do that, And then do the same thing you do. If you get pulled over and stop, I'm assuming you say, listen, officer, I got you, my son is autistic. Flat out. Oh, okay. Okay, well, hopefully the officer can read, and we can go from here.
So you're doing what you need to do. You're communicating to the officers with the stickers. Also, I do want to assure you, and I'll start with just Southfield, the other agencies, Detroit, Lakewood Village, all these other agencies are on board with autism training. We bring in an individual by the name of Dr. James Friedman, very well versed. In fact, his son is autistic. So he engages our police officers, give his experiences, and then he gives the training for our officers how to manage an encounter with a person who has autism. And so again, communication, talking to the police officers, there's cards that you can have to give your son. There you go. So you doing it, Mr. And there's Detroit captain. Can you stand up? Give me a round of applause.
And this is my son, Mark.
All right.
So I'm blessed.
Good evening. First and foremost, I would be graciously remiss if I did not acknowledge Chief Ben. Good to see you again, my dear brother fellow. Good to see you as well. My name is Kevin Scott. Refer to me as Dr. Scott. Thank you for that. Hopefully that will come to fruition very soon here. I just want to make sure that you understand why we're here. The other day, I reached out to Brother Bob Watts. If you all don't know, there was a clip on the news where some young men in this mentoring program were harassed out here in the city of Lakewood Village. I called him the following morning immediately and asked him, how can the mighty men of the Omega Psi Phi fraternity support him? And could my good brothers who are here with me today please stand up, please? We have some men of interest who are interested in me greatly. Could you all stand up here, please? Interest, stand up. I'm doing this for a reason. Because it is imperative. Pastor asked about being present, about men stepping up and doing their job. We belong to the greatest fraternity on the planet. It is imperative, Brother Ross, that you know, as well as you know, Chief Man, that the brothers of Omega Psi Phi Tau Kappa chapter are here to do whatever it takes to change the narrative. We have our bosses here, Brother Ruben Folks, who leads the chapter. We have law enforcement here. We have a dynamic, eclectic group. This is my question to them. When we talk about we have to change the behavior. As Brother Felton had mentioned, I do crisis intervention training constantly across the state. I also do mental health training. It is imperative that we teach our young males how to engage at a very early age. There are two assets that young men and older men need to have. That is the ability to be verbally engaging when crises are in a distress situation. Black men do not, with the majority, when we run into these problems with law enforcement, it's because the situation has escalated and we do not have the verbal capacity to articulate our feelings. That also talks about emotional dysregulation. Because now we have only been taught that the only behavior that we can display is aggression and anger. We always lose on the end of that. So I just want to thank you all for having this forum. I think that we continue to have this forum and that our young people can see individuals who have gone through life, because life's short for everybody. You know, I commend you as a father. I tell my son all the time, listen, I'm trying to save you from that, but if you want to go get it. You know what I'm saying? Life is not going to deny nobody their own pain. Period. It's all about choices. So I just wanted to say it and say thank you for Rock's good to be together. Yes, indeed. And I'm just going to come out and just show you our support for you and what you're doing, because we believe in you. Thank you.
This room knows that he's not just up here talking. This attorney talks the talk, walks the walk, and I've seen it with my own eyes. I've been in other youth-oriented events. Guess who shows up? They come out when I do a domestic violence awareness march. They're there. All kind of community things. We stand out in the cold giving out gifts for the children. They're there. And so he's talking the talk, he's walking the walk. Give him another round of applause to the whole
Anytime anybody asks me, the only black men that I know in my community, they're all good fathers. They're present. We have young black men here. We don't see this enough. And we don't, you know what I'm saying, hear all these things in the media and about certain things. But these are professionals. These are guys who are giving back there, taking their time out to be here. Everybody that's here. And these are the kind of people that, you know, anytime anybody asks me, all I know are solid black men. We stand up in our communities, with our kids, and we do our thing. That's right. I just wanted to add that. Go ahead.
So, hello everyone. My name is Valerie Bonner, but I go by the real black coffee, no sugar, no cream, because I'm black, strong, and unfiltered. All right. But I'm gonna use it, but don't turn it down when I'm talking. So, here's the thing. My mother got pregnant with me at 17 years old in 1964 during the middle of the civil rights movement. My father was a year younger, 16. They could not understand how to be parents at that age. So my mother fled north with me and threatened everybody in her pathway death if they ever tried to reach us again. That led me to not seeing my biological father until I was 30 years old. However, she married a man that loved me dearly from the age of 1 year old. I did not know he was not my father until his mother decided to get back at my mother at the age of 9, and she communicated it to me. I loved my father with everything in me. He's dead right now. But I used to say, Daddy, I love you. You're my role model. You're my everything. He said, baby, I love you, but I'm not capable of loving you the way that you need it. I never knew what that meant until I got older. Vietnam ruined my father. My father was an alcoholic. He wasn't really functional in a lot of ways. He was functional going to Ford Motor Company plantation every day and doing what they told him to do. But he wasn't functional as far as loving because he didn't know how. He did tell me though, when you get where you want a man, you gotta make sure he can love you the way that you need it. He also told me your role model, and this is for the young people in the room, your role model is not somebody you don't have access to. If you can't pick up the phone and call them, they're not your role model. You can't call Jordan, you can't call Snoop Dogg, you can't call Kanye West, you can't call none of them. They're not your role models. You can have admiration. They're not your role models. Your role models is somebody who you can pick up the phone and you have access to. Now to the black woman. First of all, thank you for your service as law enforcement, but I'm going to apologize to you because as black women, we don't give you enough credit and respect that you deserve. We have harmed you emotionally. We have said and done some things that we shouldn't have done. My mother started it when she ran off with me because she did what was best for her, not what was best for me. He might have been a terrible boyfriend, but he could have been a hell of a dad. You don't know that because you didn't give him a chance, you ran. So I'm going to apologize to you for the black women who have torn you down verbally, who have not given you the credit, who should have had your back and didn't, who played with your kids like they are games on a chessboard somewhere. So my question is, what can a black woman do to uplift you in your plight to deal with everything black America and white America is putting on your plate?
I got an answer, and thank you for that. And y'all correct me if I'm wrong. So young men, we young, whatever we do, we're doing it for y'all. 13, 14, you know, I remember I was going to school, we was wearing real glass and barely expected with the skin on the back. And slick shirts. And going to Northland or Fairland getting the sweet belt buckle.
Yeah.
I was doing that for, I just call her Jenny. And my mama didn't give me what I wanted. You know, I was trying to get some money so I could keep it going because I was doing it for Jenny. And my point is, Jenny didn't necessarily ask me to do it, but if I didn't have that on, I wouldn't get no love from Jenny. And I just want our black women just to appreciate us for who we are, try to anyway. You know, just who we are. And then, in terms of your advocacy, we know ain't nobody gonna love us like our mama and our women. Nobody but the Lord. But if this young man gotta take care of some business, he gotta come see his probation officer, he just parole in, or he gotta take care of some business. I don't need to talk to his grandmama. I don't need to talk to his mama while he's standing there. Let him talk. Let him tell me what he needs. Let him open up his mouth. I said, I don't even want to talk to you. I want tell me what you're gonna do. Well, he doing good. He so and so. Let me hear from him. I can talk. So we love you. We appreciate you, but we are men. Allow us to do what God created us to do and created us to be. That's my part. That's my part.
I'd like to say this. First of all, thank you. I think that was very heartfelt. Probably needed by a lot of black men to hear that. But also to that point, the black woman is the most disrespected person on the planet. And understanding that there's a saying, hurt people, and we have to be very intentional in not buying into the narrative that people try to paint about us. There was a study, and actually Oprah Winfrey talked about it, and it was going around on social media. Black men are more involved in their children's life than any race in the United States of America. So we have to start to tell our own story and rewrite the narrative and stop letting other people tell the story for us. And I think what you did, if we continue to do things like this, is healing, number one, but there's an opportunity for us to stop this very divisive, the black man ain't no good, the black woman is a gold digger. We gotta stop all that and start to love each other and respect each other and bring out the best of each other. So thank you for saying that.
I want to add on to that. I remember hearing something from Michael Eric Dyson. So there is a term that we hear black on black crime, right? And so, but you never hear, I guess, the narrative of white on white or Asian on Asian. And one of the points that he brought out is that people typically harm people who are in close proximity to each other. And so I'm not saying that we don't do things to each other, because we do. But also, too, we have to be very careful with the narrative of what the media puts out when they put these statements out, and they do it in such a way to where it marginalizes one community, but it doesn't do the same to other communities. And then we take these things and we run with it when these things happen in other communities as well. We do have to be responsible. But I also want to make sure that we kind of think about, we can't just take something just because we saw it on the internet or we heard somebody say it, right? We have to we need to be critical thinkers. We need to be skeptics, and we need to really go through. Earlier, somebody had mentioned this, in terms of like ignorance of the law is no justification like to break the law. And I remember recently getting a parking ticket, and I was really upset because I was not aware that if you were not 20 feet away from a crosswalk and 30 feet away from a stop sign. Now, I took driver's ed when I was 16. I'm 52 years old. I have no idea about the 20 feet and the 30 feet. But I'm going to be held to that whether I know it or not, and they know it. And so, how do we navigate this stuff where, like, who's looking at all the laws that we get stopped for? I mean, all the things, we have no idea, all the small things that we could get hemmed up for. So how can we navigate the stuff that we just don't know?
Oh, I'll be honest. What happens is it's a responsibility of your state legislators, your local politicians, for them to let you know what's going on. The city has people that work for them that go out. I was a legislative assistant policy analyst for King Conklin back in early 2000s. That was my job, to go out and let folks know what laws are going to impact them. You know, they get ready to start this, when they first started doing the, giving tickets for the, what do they call it? You know, when you put out the environmental violation, they was going to start picking up on that. And so our job was to go out and let the community know what's going on, because people just throwing refrigerator stuff out there. They getting something in the mail, telling me I got a $400 ticket or whatever. I ain't know nothing about it. So the people that were putting in place to get you the information, that's their responsibility. Again, because I'm not, the only reason I check my license every year is because they got to. If I wasn't doing that, I wouldn't know if I had any warrants or anything like that, but as a law enforcement agent, we got to do it every year to make sure that we don't have it, that we're in compliance and things like that. So again, if you don't exercise these things you don't know, or you don't have people coming into the community sharing that with you, you know, then that's where that whole ignorance of the law piece comes in.
All right, so we're getting close to
That's
the
one
end.
thing anyway.
What I want to do is, okay. All right, so we're going to take another question, but I also want to give everybody an opportunity to be able to have at least like one closing thought, right? So let's answer this question, and then I'll give everybody, you know.
Okay, I was sure. Okay, hi everyone. My name is Tay Ford. I am a clinical mental health therapist. One of the things I want to say is just thank you for your service, your compassion, as well as just pouring out your transparency. One of the things as a clinical mental health therapist, we have noticed in the suicide rates in Black men have increased and are at a high rate. So my ask or my question to you, not necessarily in regards to suicide, but what is some advice or encouragement for our young Black men who probably have made those mistakes? We heard a lot of like what not to do, but what if you already made some of those mistakes? What if you already have things on your record? What if you already been in situations? What advice or encouragement could you give to young Black men and Black men to keep going despite the things that they may have already made mistakes in that are significant and has changed the trajectory of their life?
So I'll start with that one. One thing that I tell myself, and I'll probably say the other part for the closing, is that I have survived everything I've ever been through. And so once you understand that regardless of what you're going through, regardless of how bad I thought something would be, there was always the next day. So I survived it. So this too shall pass is another saying. And it'll be fine in the end, and if it's not fine, it's not the end. You know what I'm saying? If it's fine, if it's not fine, it's not the end. So that's one thing that I kind of live by. So it's just, it helps me, regardless of whatever I'm going through, know that I'll get through this too.
This will probably be my closing statement and everything. Is that all right? Cool. So, you know, I think that from the standpoint of African American men, the trauma, a lot of the toxicity that we have, that we face every day, it's about perception of that particular issue, that particular concern. And with that, I think that we need to shift and develop ourselves cognitively, okay? Expand our capacity in our minds and understand that what's maybe perceived as overwhelming may not necessarily be overwhelming. And another thing is we have to have somebody to talk to. Everybody say therapy. Therapy. Everybody say therapy.
Therapy.
Therapy is a stigma in the African American community. Don't nobody want to talk to nobody. And so when that happens with a man, an African American man, it's like a powder keg. And all we need is the wrong thing, and it's just blow us all up and have us all jacked up. So I just believe that we could recalibrate our minds and regenerate some things and learn to think differently. And that takes a lot of exercise. That means I gotta maybe cut off social media. I can't watch so much TV. I can't hang out around the same group of people. But whatever adjustments I have to make, I have to do it and surround myself with people that can cultivate and make an environment that's nurturing to me, being what I need to do in order to overcome some of those things and prevent it. Once they find themselves in a situation and they can think clearly, they can take advantage of a resource. I know so many people who have right now, I can call on the phone, who have been in prison 28, 29 years, gotten out, multi-millionaires. I mean, of course you get a lot of time to think, but they get a lot of opportunity, you know, to figure out what it is when they get out. But they make a choice when they get out. They can either go back or they can go on. So again, there is life after mistakes, but if you got the same mind, it's not going to be different. They said if you're doing the same thing, expecting different results, that's called
insanity.
So I think we gotta work on our minds.
All right, I'll let all you guys close out with closing thought. I'm gonna give one, and we're gonna bring Mark back up to the front. So Sean, we're gonna start with you, big fella. This is good. This is really good. I think we need more of this. And to echo your sentiment, Deputy, I didn't get therapy until I was 44 years old. So I'm 48 right now, right? And so I think that if we create a culture of communication, to echo the doctor's thought, teaching our young men how to articulate themselves, how to think through process, I think are great things that we just need to do as a community, period. I think that at a base level, if we did those things, we would be much further ahead and we could talk about much bigger problems as far as our own community and our own destiny, you know, as far as that matters. I am a big proponent, this is my final thought, I'm a big proponent of being solution-driven. I just like to think innovatively. I don't want to dwell on problems. I want to talk about how to fix them. I want to talk about strategy. I want to talk about if there is a problem that we see, that we can clearly see it, how do we fix it, how do we make it long-term, and how do we make it impact the next generation that comes along? How do we create sustainability for our family's family that is to come after us? And I clearly and honestly believe that it is our job to create the path that we may not see inherited, right? We need to make sure that our children, that success is a lifestyle that we may not see, but that we seed and make sure we invest in today. I just believe that that is the case. I think that stuff like this should be the first of many of regularity to come. And so if we just do this and we sit on it, then it will feather away and fade by the wayside. But if we're serious about coming up, and if we're serious about seeing stuff be successful within our own society, then we will keep pushing, we will keep finding solutions, and we will become strong within our own communities. Rock that. Thank you all for coming. All right. Rock that.
So I'm gonna start off really thanking you all for letting us hear your concerns. We'll share some ideas because it's important for us to hear this so we can take these things back to our organizations. I'm gonna tell you right now, running a police department is very difficult. This job is not easy. We do a lot of different things. It's been a very busy week for me in Southfield alone, just this week, dealing with our youth at this hotel. I had a vehicle pursuit to follow that. So a lot of things go on. My commitment to you all is I'm going to continue to be open, be honest, hold officers accountable, and then hold folks who violate the law or infringe on you accountable. Again, this is not an easy job, but my commitment is to be a fair and honest chief that you can talk to and get a straightforward answer. I'm going to tell you right now, when George Floyd was murdered, I was one of the first chiefs to come out public. I didn't wait around to see who was going to say what. No, this is murder. Upset about what happened with George Floyd. Many people don't know this. I applied for that police department to be the chief of police from Minneapolis, Minnesota because of that incident, because I felt that I could make a change. Out of 1,000 people that applied for that job, I came in number 2. It came down between me and the guy from New Jersey, but God wanted me to stay here in Southfield. And so that's why I remain here. And again, my commitment remains the same. You get from me. I think you've seen it over these 4.5 years, and it will remain the same. Thank you.
First of all, I think we should give the mayor a hand clap. Panel together. When I took my uniform off for the last time, I can't take off my skin and being black. I was black when I joined the police department. I was black when I left the police department. So my commitment to ideas and conversation and sewing into people
in ways that will help the dynamic between black people and law enforcement improve, that's a lifetime commitment. But I will say this, as a community, if we don't get nothing else, we got to get back to God. Because until we have a moral base, so I don't care how you spell his name. I spell it J-E-S-U-S. But if you call him Allah, if you call him Jehovah, whatever you call him, we got to get back to a moral base, to where we love each other, we respect each other, and we have some basic things we agree on. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal. Until we get back to that, we're gonna have a problem no matter what these gentlemen up here do, what we do as a community. We gotta get back to God. So I'm just grateful for this opportunity to share with you this evening, and I look forward to doing some more work in this community, and I think we're gonna be doing some great things in the future.
I think I'll close in saying, if I can leave the group with anything, it's that to keep things in perspective in your life. We hope to get home safely tonight. There are instances of things that can happen that can change. Whatever you think is important can all of a sudden not be important at all. You can get a call, you can be faced with something that will change everything you think is important. So keeping God, keeping your family, keeping those things that aren't material based. I'm not a person, and I try to share that with people, is I would like to see community, especially our community, get from basing the desire of material wealth to be something that we don't. You can type my name in and put Chicago, and what will come up is that I was going to be awarded an $80 million contract 7 years ago. And 2 days before the contract was going to be awarded, I was told that I would no longer be awarded that contract. Now, stemming from that, the FBI got involved and people have been going to jail because it was rigged and not in my favor. And so when you talk about mental health and therapy, to think that you're about to get $80 million and not to get $80 million, and that's like about to be drafted #1 and then to find out you don't get drafted at all. What does a mind go through? How do you push through that and not blow your brains out and not jump off a building? And I had just got married. So what I'm saying is that if it's not the end, it's all right. You will push through. And to keep things in perspective, because as something can be right before you, it can be taken away from you. How well do you bounce back from that? Last year I almost passed away. I was ill, didn't know it, had to be rushed to the hospital. Man said, Mr. Ringo, do you smoke? No. Do you drink? Not really. They came and ran all kind of tests, didn't know what was wrong with me. I was in Henry Ford, West Bloomfield for about a week and a half. Ran all kind of tests, came back, my liver was heavily infected. I said, man, I only got one of those. And it had to give me time, I had to do an IV. And when I was so sick that what I went through, I just came back from a trip to Chicago, nothing else mattered.
Yeah.
You could immediately be facing something that everything that we're here talking about, unity, you're trying to live.
Mm-hmm.
And until you have faced those type of circumstances, that you start to put what's really important in perspective. There's no need to get emotional. There's no need to, like they say, yell and scream. Because when we get tired, we'll get moving. If you're facing a diet change that the doctor will tell you about, don't wait till they say we got to chop your foot off. It's too late then. There is a such thing as too late in a community, in an individual. And if you don't believe it, just keep on. So I don't mean to change the tone of the conversation, but I want to leave something heavy for the group to leave here to put on their mind that as we get all riled up, let's keep things in perspective of what's really important and how we should navigate our lives.
And I'm gonna close this out. I want to speak to the young men who are in the room. And I can say this. I want you to know that lots of times we have a perspective of what's cool in the moment, and it's not really cool. I grew up and like I take pride in being a nerd. I love technology. I love the stuff that I do. And right now is a very important time for you to chase your dreams. All the other things will be there if you pour yourself into chasing your dreams. And a lot of people that you might see doing things that you think are cool, that stuff is not going to be cool down the road. And if you focus and do the things that you're supposed to, the world is going to open up to you. The opportunity to go to school, you know what I'm saying, the woman of your dreams down the road, I mean, everything will open up if you just lock in and focus. And what I found is that I had a chance to be able to find God early in life, and I was able to avoid a lot of situations. And so I'm very, very grateful for that. But I want to thank every man on this panel here for giving their time. I want to thank the audience. I want to bring Mark up to the front. These kind of conversations don't facilitate without having a community leader like Mark. Mentoring program are doing this not because they're getting paid a million. He's doing this because he cares, and he cares about his city. We have our mayor who spent the whole time. Sometimes politicians come in, they pop in, and they do their thing just so they can get the photo op and they bounce. She's been here the whole time. So I want Mark to come up, and I'm mayor to be able to close this out, and I want to thank everybody for coming out.
First and foremost, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. Thanks for all the boys that came out. I hope you got something that you needed, and everybody can take home some of this great advice that these guys have been giving everybody. I'd like to thank each and everybody on the panel for coming out, because couldn't have done it without you guys. Big shout out to Omega Psi Phi for coming through. I appreciate each and everybody in this room. Jalen, Mayor Garrett, my dad in the back, Pastor Scotty, Dee, Doris, everybody. So if I forgot you, blame it on my head, not my heart. I haven't got to you yet here.
Just for laugh.
My lovely wife. She's allowing me to do this. So once again, thank you everybody for coming out, and we're gonna have Mayor Garrett close us out.
Well, thank you all for coming out. This is really, really important to me. We will be having something else soon, because Mark is going to steal it from me. It's going to be unity in the community. I did make that up. Thank you. Don't do that. So, the importance of us coming together and talking it is important, but we need everyone to be here. We need to have a diverse crowd, and we're going to keep talking about it. And I think someone said up here, the fact is, as long as I'm there, we're not going to sweep it underneath the rug. Anything that's going on here, we're going to bring it out, because we want everyone to understand that we're diverse in thoughts, we're diverse in so many different things. And so when you're out, and I'm saying this to kids also, one thing that I was taught growing up is that instead of getting mad when people ask you questions like, why do you wear your hair like this, or you do X, Y, Z, you explain to them. There's no need to get upset. There's no need to get an attitude. Just teach them. And so that they can learn from you. So then you can kind of diffuse some of the things of the thoughts that someone might have about you. So again, I thank you all for being here. This is really, really, really important to me. Mr. Watts, there is a bill that's being worked through the House. It is called the Blue Envelope. Rep. Scott, Helena Scott, is working on that, and along with, I do have another side hustle. My other job is working with her on that one for autism. So I thank you all. Please drive safely out of Lather Village. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
I know that's right.
Before we go, I want to make sure we get some group pictures, because I want everybody to see it all together. Also, too, I want to shout.
It's a wrap.
There's two people out in the audience that don't look like us.
Thank you.